Another Christian tried to respond to my video about the pagan origins of the so-called vision in Revelation 12 of the woman clothed with the sun and the red dragon. He posted very low-resolution screenshots of some scholarly sources, but he deserves credit for at least doing that much, even though he basically repeated the same argument that I already debunked in another video. Anyway, this new guy thinks his sources help him. They don't. Like the last guy, the new guy doesn't seem to understand that the pagan myth and the myth in Revelation 12 don't have to be exactly the same in order for any reasonable observer to conclude that Revelation 12 copied a well-known pagan motif. In this case, it is a common combat myth involving a divine being and a powerful dragon-like monster. The details may be different, but the main theme is the same. Also, literally no one in the history of biblical criticism has said that the Greco-Roman myth of Apollo was reproduced exactly the same way in Revelation 12, with only the names changed. Basically, all of the sources this new guy cited in his low-resolution screenshots prove one thing. The myth of Leto, Apollo, and Python existed in multiple versions. So, for example, in the book The Gods of the Greeks, page 135, it states, "The stories differed as to whether Leto still had her children in her womb or carried them on her shoulders." And pertaining specifically to Apollo, it states that Python was Apollo's enemy in most stories, and that Python was seeking to prevent the birth of Leto's children. So there were many versions of the story, but the particular version in which Python tries to prevent the birth of Apollo and Artemis sounds very much like the vision in Revelation 12. As for the so-called older tales, which mention two dragons, if we keep reading in the same paragraph, the book states that the female dragon Delphine was sometimes called Python. The other book cited by the new guy, Dracon, Dragon Myth and Serpent Cult in the Greek and Roman worlds, refers to at least 3 versions of the Apollo-Python myth. As for the version involving the attempted rape of Leto, it is not found in every source. Even if it was part of the original myth, that still does not refute the fact that the basic motif is found in both the Greek myth and Revelation 12. In the book The Reality of Apocalypse Rhetoric and Politics in the Book of Revelation, author Jan Willem van Henten notes that the dragon passages of Revelation 12 correspond to descriptions of dragons in Greco-Roman combat myths. He also notes that the Python myths were known in the 1st and 2nd centuries in the areas mentioned in Revelation, though there are obviously some discrepancies. But there's another version that, quote, fits better, and that is the Egyptian myth of Isis and Seth Typhon. Not surprisingly, the new guy ignored the parallels I mentioned in another video between Revelation 12 and the Egyptian myth. So let's talk more about that. Van Henten notes that the dragon known as Seth Typhon was consistently depicted as a red animal, just like the red dragon in Revelation 12. Another close parallel is found between Revelation 12:4, which talks of the sweeping of a third of the stars to earth, and the Egyptian myth in which Seth Typhon attacked heaven and cast down the stars in constellations. Oh, and it just so happens that Typhon was also associated with Python in the Greek myths, and became associated with the Egyptian god Seth around the 6th or 5th century BCE, hence the name Seth Typhon. So there was no single uniform myth. This is hardly surprising, since what was common to both Egyptian and Greco-Roman culture, and later on the Book of Revelation, was the motif of a divine female, i.e. a goddess, or the quote-unquote church, being threatened by a dragon, or Satan, which represented the forces of chaos or evil. It was this motif that John of Patmos most likely used as the inspiration for the woman clothed with the sun and the red dragon. The inspiration did not come from God. This is the simplest and most logical explanation.
وَقُلْ جَاءَ الْحَقُّ وَزَهَقَ الْبَاطِلُ إِنَّ الْبَاطِلَ كَانَ زَهُوقًا